Have you ever wondered what happens behind the hospital curtains? Trust me, it's a wild ride. So stick around and I'll spill all the tea. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be a bit different as I share my personal journey that actually led me to quitting my pretty stable and decent paying job as a registered nurse. For those of you who don't know me too well, I've been a registered nurse for 5 grueling years. And before you say, whoa, grueling, that's a bit over the top, please keep watching because I think I might just change your mind. I'm going to break it down for you and give you a little glimpse into why I made the decision to leave nursing behind. Disclaimer, when I talk about patients in this video, I'm talking about the majority I personally experienced, not all of them. I can without a doubt say that over my 5-year career as a nurse, I did get to look after some pretty amazing people that were absolutely beautiful. But unfortunately, that 5% of the patients I looked after didn't really outweigh the other 95%. So let's kick things off with the first major issue, shift work. If you know, you know. And if you don't know, you don't really want to know. The lack of routine, constant night shifts, and the impact this job has had on my social life was overwhelming to say the least. Weekends became work days, family events and holidays were missed, and catching up with friends became an absolute nightmare. It gets really tough when your job interferes with your social life and your ability to connect with friends and family, all while trying to live a life of somewhat normalcy. Unaccepting patients. One of the most challenging aspects of nursing was dealing with patients who literally didn't want to be helped. You'd think that despite having a near-death crisis or actually dying and being given a second chance at life, you'd be begging to get help, right? Nope. These people literally didn't care. They refused life-saving medications and refused to quit smoking and make lifestyle changes. Yet they stay in hospital and take up a bed, so someone who wants to be saved doesn't get that chance. If you are this person, please, kindly, f*** off. And don't forget cleaning up piss and shit from someone who is literally mobile and can get up and walk, yet they refuse to go to the toilet, so they decided to shit themselves instead. Why? Let's talk about workload and understaffing. Different hospitals have different nurse to patient ratios, which range from 1-to-1, 1-to-2, all the way up to 1-to-6. This obviously depends on acuity and specialty. But due to the constant understaffing, this pretty much just goes straight out the window. And the nurse-patient ratio that you actually work with is pretty unsafe. The ratios were pretty much unmanageable at the best of times, and the constant pressure to care for every one of those patients, with obviously limited resources and time, causes so much stress. Like, God forbid Dorothy doesn't get her sugar with her tea. First you cop abuse, and then your whole shift is in shambles, and that is honestly how it works. It's so disheartening when you want to give your best to these patients, but the system and all the odds are stacked against you. For some ungodly reason, patients think of nurses as a personal servant who will come running at their call. Every shift, without a doubt, I had one of these patients who literally demanded everything on a silver platter, from making drinks and food to even being asked to rub their back. Don't get me wrong, if you can't mobilize, I'll help, but if you're independent, get your own coffee. But it wasn't just patients. Doctors love to abuse this power as well. Many doctors, not all of them, pretty much treated us with little respect, demanding just as much from us as the patients did. It's a tough gig when both parties fail to recognize the workload and responsibility that nurses carry. I've had countless conversations with patients that could not understand that us nurses cannot just walk into the drug room, get the tablet you've been on for 20 years, and hand it to you. Sorry love, but the doctor hasn't charted it yet. So get comfy, stop yelling at me, and wait. As you know, health professionals have to abide by certain codes of conduct, which pretty much puts us in such a shit position where we have to just stand there and cop abuse. There are moments I just wished to look them dead in the eye and say, get the out of my face, Barbara. But the fear of losing our registration or even worse keeps a lot of us silent. For 5 years, I grappled with the never-ending frustration of patients not being able to understand that I am not this omnipresent or all-knowing being. Like I literally can't split myself into 4 and throw a party with each patient I have every shift. The disconnect between what patients and doctors expected from us nurses and what was actually humanly possible in a shift just left me feeling overworked, undervalued, and underappreciated, and just straight up burnt out. In a single shift, you rarely ever get everything that you need done. Staff politics. The hierarchy within the nursing profession is a war in its own. There's always going to be someone above you, unless you're the top dog, but unlikely. Unfortunately, some of these people love to use their title and rank as a means to treat you like dog shit. And honestly, they get away with it because they're so high up the chain. And before you say, just make a formal complaint to your manager. Have you heard of favoritism? Yeah, the healthcare field loves that shit. Despite being more and more sought out from males, nursing is a pretty female-dominant field. And let me tell you, working with so many women can be exhausting. A lot, not all, but a lot, can be very feisty and bitchy. And I've seen a lot of internal politic wars happen and a lot of backstabbing towards each other in my time of nursing. Abuse. We deal with patients in their worst states: psychosis, substance abuse, overdoses, mental health crises, delirium, dementia, you name it. Unfortunately, this often means that us, as caregivers, bear the brunt of abuse. I've been yelled at, punched, kicked, spat on. Man, I've had people claw my arms and say some pretty up shit to me, all while I'm literally just doing my job to help you and save your life. Like, how fucking twisted is that? If someone hit a grocery store assistant, they'd be sent home and most likely pressing charges against that person, right? So why can't we? Why do we just sit there and cop that shit and continue on our day as if nothing has happened? It's a pretty tough pill to swallow when you realize that the very people you're trying to help are the ones making your job a living hell. The question remains, why do we as healthcare professionals tolerate this level of abuse? Personal toll and mental health. To top it all off, all of these feelings started to translate from my work to my personal life. Anxiety, pessimism, depression, and pretty much detachment from friends and family became my norm. The job left me emotionally drained to the point where I began to hate people, like literally hate people. It was a vicious cycle that I couldn't escape, but I could escape the people. I just stayed home. I thought for 4 of my 5 years working that I could just tough it out and put up with it and keep working harder. But every night was sleepless due to anxiety and dread towards the next workday. As soon as I woke up, I felt so flat and depressed. Even on my days off, I was constantly thinking about how I had to go back to work. So I never really enjoyed my days off. But what about your degree you studied 4 years for? What about your HECS debt? I couldn't give a shit about that. I'm 29 years old. I still have 50 plus years to live. Why would I continue to ruin my life and soul because of a piece of paper and some debt? If anyone uses either of these as an excuse to continue to work in a field that is literally tearing your life apart, you need to take a step back and do some introspection. There is no way I personally could do that job for 20 plus years without doing something really bad to myself. And that's the honest truth. I got out before I got out. If you know, you know. You cannot put a price on your health. The moral of the story here, guys, is whether you're a nurse or not, if you're in a job that doesn't feel right for you, is stressing you the fuck out, or causing you any grief in your life, get the fuck out. I totally understand if you've been in a career for so long, whatever that may be, that it does become a part of your identity. And quitting and moving on would just seem weird, right? But you literally have one life. Why would you stay there and suffer? My only regret is not quitting sooner. Look after yourself, guys.